Hello everyone, welcome to Harrison High School's open house. If you would please make your way to the theater to receive information on gifted services in Cobb County, and then after that you will proceed to your classes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Randy Genesi, Gifted Services Representative for the Cobb County School District. Our vision here at the Advanced Learning Department is to promote a rigorous curricular content that uses critical inquiry, creativity, communication of complex thoughts, and an authentic approach to learning. Our goals are to develop both cognitive and affective skills and also enrich and extend the Georgia standards of excellence. In our classrooms, you may find teachers doing such things as project-based learning, student interest projects, accelerated content, and process-driven instruction. Thank you so much for attending our open house presentation. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact us here at the Advanced Learning Department.
Okay parents, it's time to move on to your next class. It is time to move on to your next class.
Ms. McGinnis, how do you encourage your students if they're struggling with a concept?
When my students are struggling, I do try to incorporate like differentiated tasks and scaffolded tasks, to help everyone get to the level I want them to be at. But one of the biggest things that I promote in my classroom is a growth mindset. So growth mindset, instead of saying, you don't understand this or you failed this, we say, we don't understand it yet. Everyone's gonna have days in algebra where they're not sure what's going on. Like the concept doesn't make sense from the first time because a lot of it's very new and different than what they've seen before. So the biggest thing I want to do with them is, instead of them being intimidated by the math and just automatically checking out, I want them to say, I don't understand this yet. I need to ask more questions, I need to look at some more problems, I need to focus on what I do know how to do so that I can grow and understand this better later.
Ms. McGinnis, what are some ways that you address the social needs of your gifted students?
Good question. So one of the ways I address the social needs of my gifted students is through flexible grouping. So a lot of times in a regular classroom, and that's not differentiated like our gifted classroom, gifted students or high achieving students are used more as peer tutors, like, oh, you finished your work, go help with someone else. And that's not what I do in my classroom. So flexible grouping, my groups change based on what we're doing that day. So if I have a bunch of students who have mastered the concept and are ready to move on, I'll group them together so they're with people, academic peers that all understand the concept, and maybe give them an enrichment task or more challenging problems to tackle. That way, in my other groups might be the kids who understand but still need more practice at the basic level or really need a lot of help. So the groups are more based on level and your academic peers rather than, oh, you understand it, go help someone else. So flexible grouping is probably the biggest way that I try and accommodate for their social needs.
How do you differentiate for your varied levels in math?
One of the ways that I differentiate in my classroom is through anchor activities. So when you're teaching gifted students, you're going to have some students that are really gifted in math and other students that are gifted in other areas. So the kids that are gifted in math often finish their tasks way faster than other students. So one way I differentiate is through anchor activities. Anchor activities are activities that run throughout a unit and all tie into the overarching concept of the unit. So if they finish the classwork for the day, they can go to that anchor activity, maybe move on to the next step if they understand it, even though the rest of the class isn't there yet, but they will get there. So it's something productive that they can be doing with their time rather than, oh, I finished, I'm gonna do other work or for other classes or go help someone else. It's something that can be enriching their learning while giving the other students the time that they need to finish that topic for the day.
So the tasks that you have the students do they require different levels of knowledge?
Yes, so the tasks that I do in my classroom do require various levels of knowledge. So at the beginning of the unit, we'll go for the we'll go for the basic levels. We want to remember and understand a concept. So that is memorization and understanding is like the lower levels of knowledge. Then as we move through a unit, we want to start thinking harder, thinking deeper. We're going to start doing activities that focus on analyzing and evaluating a situation, probably in a real-world context. Then as we move through the unit and we're really getting towards mastering the concept, we look at the highest level of knowledge is creation. So that's where our project-based learning comes into play. We can really evaluate if they've mastered a standard. If they're creating things that tie to that standard, then we know they've truly mastered it.
Okay, parents, it's time to move on to your next class. It is time to move on to your next class.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I am Senora Thomas.
And I'm Senora Quinones.
And tonight we're going to talk to you guys about Spanish 2 honors.
Before we jump into that, I kind of just want to give you a breakdown of what to expect in a Spanish 2 class. In our Spanish 2 class, we're going to cover a variety of thematic units. We're going to go from vacations all the way to health, food, clothes, all those different kinds of thematic units. And in those units, students will cover an array of vocabulary, grammar from present to past, and as well as cultural lessons, going shopping in a different country or eating in a different country. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so what is the difference between an on-level Spanish course and then honors Spanish 2?
Yes, absolutely. That's definitely a question that we get all the time, wanting to know about, obviously, the differences between an on-level Spanish 2 course and an honors Spanish 2 course. We are going to give you guys some examples as we kind of go through the PowerPoint so that you guys can kind of see, and even at the end we're going to actually show you some presentations so that you can see how much further we take it. But just to give you guys a little bit of an overview, in Spanish 2, we make sure that we cover our vocab, our grammar, like Senora Quinones said. We go into the preterite tense, and when we actually go into honors level, the difference is it's going to go at a faster pace than you would an on-level course. We actually get to the point where we incorporate an extra chapter than we would. So the kids are getting more activities that are going to be just helping them with their skills, not necessarily more work, but the type of activities that they're going to get is all about pretty much the the quality versus the quantity. Yes.
Correct. And to kind of piggyback off of what Senor Thomas said is our honors level students, our gifted students are expected to have excellent study skills, excellent communication skills, right? Our expectations are just a little higher. These students have to learn to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, because it will be an integral part of their time through us, the time with us, because we expect, or at least we would hope, the students who are in Honor Spanish 2 are starting to get a feel for it and be ready to keep going to Honor Spanish 3, Honor Spanish 4, 5, 6, 7. So kind of like what she said, it will be presented at a little faster pace. Students are going to have to incorporate that higher level thinking into all their activities. And they're going to have deal with more complex ideas and more complex topics, okay?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, like, for example, when we do some presentations, we like to tell our students, we want more from you. Even though we ask a question, when you actually present, we want to hear, well, this is the reason, or because, or giving a comparison, okay? We're trying to pull more from them. The more vocab, the more grammar, the better. We're just trying to improve their skills. Okay.
Another example of the difference between our on-level and our honors is that we use novels as a form of enrichment. Our students are going to read a short novel, nothing too long, right? We don't want to scare them right away, but they will be reading a short novel, and they're going to be using that to expand their vocab, expand their cultural knowledge. And yeah, so it's a great tool for them. They seem to really enjoy it.
Absolutely. They get the listening skills, the reading skills, and at the same time when we have an activity when we want them to write about what we've actually been reading, they're working on their writing skills as well. So it's just developing their skills all around.
Any questions so far? Yes.
How are the students assessed in an honors level class?
That's a great question. Students are assessed quite differently between the on-level and the honors level course. Actually, in our honors level course, we try to focus on our 3 modes of communication. I'll go into that in a minute. But what I mean by that is that students aren't tested or assessed on, can you take a quiz? Can you take a test? We focus on different things. So our 3 modes of assessment are going to be interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational. The interpersonal mode, that's when a student can communicate with somebody else. This can be written or this can be spoken, right? Students can write an email, can they have a conversation? That would be interpersonal. Interpretive is, can you comprehend what you are reading or what you're listening to? So that's comprehension skills right there.
And that's what we work on when we do the novel.
Absolutely. And then our last one is presentational. People get very confused with this one. It doesn't mean can you present. This is, can you produce work? Can you write sentences, essays? Presentation is part of it, right? Can you give us information? So those are our 3 modes of communication. So we're not going to be saying, hey, can I take a quiz? Can I take a test? No, we're going to look at those 3 as a whole.
Absolutely. Also, when they do present, we do grade them with an AP scale. And the reason that we're doing that is because we are hoping that our honors level students are going to continue on to the next level and hopefully continue on to AP. With that AP rubric, we're just preparing them so when they get to AP, it's not like, you know, they're not taken back, they don't feel ready. We want to make sure that we start them on as early as possible so that they can get those skills. We provide them with feedback. It talks about, for example, pronunciation, were they able to communicate? Did they give us more? We always want that. Why? Because we want them to add more to their presentation. We always tell the students, you can give us everything, and you pretty much start like with an AP scale. It goes from 1 through 5, and you can give us the information that we asked for, and that's out of 3. But to get that 4 and that 5, you have to give us more. We want you to make comparisons. If you're talking about describing yourself, then maybe you could even say, I am this way, but my mother, and then, or my father, but they're just basically incorporating more. We're wanting more from our gifted students.
Right, and kind of piggyback off of that, in the AP rubric, you know, we're looking at everything as a whole, right? Kind of like what she said, we're not looking for can you write a sentence, we're looking for can you write a sentence in advanced grammar structures? Can you write a sentence using the vocab or new grammar that you've learned, right? So we're looking at everything to grade them and not just can you conjugate a verb, right? Because that'll be pretty simple in the AP rubric scale. So, how can students be successful in our honors level course? Whenever I come into this slide, I always like to give a quote from the article, It's Safe to Be Smart. Gifted students benefit from classroom environments that support their social and emotional development. And that to us is a huge focus in our honors level course. Absolutely. We are catering our lessons. We are modifying our lessons to meet our students' needs on a daily basis, right? Our students all develop differently. Our students all have different learning profiles, and we really want to cater and differentiate our class to fit their needs.
Absolutely. We're all about welcoming, obviously, creativity. We want our kids to go at a whole nother level than what they're used to. We want them basically to think outside the box. We want to be able to give them something, and for them, like Senora Quiñones said, not just give us the response or the answer to something, but to just really think about it and tell us like how they process. And then there's other ways that we pretty much help them and we guide them so that they can develop these skills. We obviously take notes. We have organized notes that we do. We have Hoya block, which is another enrichment where basically we go a little bit more into depth with what we're already doing in the classroom setting, and we just make sure that they're developing their grammar skills and their vocab skills and everything. So we do a lot on Quizlet. So for example, sometimes for either the warm-up or just to pretty much end the class, we'll go to the computer lab, and the kids at that point can focus on vocab and grammar, and it just really helps them. This is something also, a great tool that they can use on their own at home. Even with our VHL. VHL basically is our textbook, but it is actually going to be online. And on there, they can actually listen to other people who speak the language. The great thing is that they're hearing different accents, which is important because obviously we are incorporating culture into our course as well. They can work on different activities. They can do just many different types of assignments on VHL that's just going to basically help them with their skills.
Yeah, and also to just kind of add a little bit something, you know, like we said, we do like to focus on their needs, and something that we tend to keep in mind is how the student learns. So we do take that into consideration when planning our daily lessons. A few examples of that, you know, if your student is an auditory learner, they love to listen to music, that's how they learn, they love to listening to activities, that's just the best way for them to receive information. We tell them, hey, if that's what you like, go listen to Spanish songs, and we'll give them examples of that. If the student's a visual learner, hey, watch a movie, right? Watch a video on this grammar lesson, right? If they're kinesthetic, if they love walking around, hey, get up and go talk with a partner, right? So we really focus on what would fit best for them. Okay.
Absolutely.
Any questions so far?
Yes.
What would the difference be in an on-level project versus an honors level project?
Yes, absolutely. We're actually going to go ahead and show you an example so that you can see the difference between a presentation or project that we do with an on-level Spanish 2 course versus an honors course. So for example, we have a food unit that we cover in both, in Spanish on-level Spanish 2, and then obviously in honors. So for example, on a food unit, on an on-level course, we have our students to just research a Spanish-speaking country. They can actually choose a dish that they want to present to the class and that they want to talk about. And at that point, they do like different descriptions, and they can talk about like the country, the capital, and the flag, and those type of things. But in an honors level course, when we do this presentation, it goes a lot more into depth, and Senora Quiñones is going to give you an example of that.
So in the honors level course, in that chapter unit, students, instead of like researching a dish or researching a restaurant, they are actually going to create a website for their own restaurant, which incorporates Spanish food from Spanish-speaking countries, right? So this is an example of one from a year ago. This student created their own restaurant. They incorporated directions, phone numbers, etc. They went on and give us a summary of the restaurant. What kind of food can we expect? From what country? How much money? Etc. From there, they put typical dishes that you find from that country. They gave us descriptions, pictures, and they took it even a step further and created their own reviews, kind of like when you're sitting at Yelp and looking for a review on a restaurant. They did that on their website. So they took it to a whole other level.
And they're incorporating different forms of verbs, like they have on here present tense and preterite tense. Just, you know, they have to figure out when to use one over the other, and they do a really, really good job. And again, this is another project where we see that creativity out of our gifted students. That's the whole point. We want to be able to give them some type of project, some type of assessment, activity, where they're gonna take it and kind of just do their own thing to show us what they can do. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. All right, so this is pretty much the end of our presentation. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully it was informational. If you guys have any further questions and you want to stay after, we're going to be here for a while, so we would love to chat with you and just make sure that you understand that we are going to make sure that our gifted students are going to be taken care of, and we are going to develop their skills. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, parents, it's time to move on to your next class. It is time to move on to your next class.
Good evening, and thank you for coming to Chemistry Open House. This is an honors class, which is slightly different than a general class in that it allows a little more student freedom as long as it's safe. The students will be allowed to work together in groups to develop their concepts and develop their knowledge of chemistry standards. And eventually we would like to put those standards in practice, so they will be applying what they have learned in the laboratory setting. We like to encourage them to explore, make mistakes, which we say are not really mistakes, they're just learning opportunities. And then they will take that information and build upon it and build their knowledge of chemistry concepts. It'll be very much student-centered. I will kind of be a facilitator, not really an instructor, and I'm just there to make sure that they get where they need to be by the end of the semester in a safe environment. They will be allowed to experiment. They will be allowed to think out loud. They'll be allowed to work in groups. And hopefully by the end, they will be confident enough in their knowledge that when they go on to college, they'll have a strong foundation for that first freshman chemistry class. If there are any questions, I'll take those down.
All right, so what does honors chemistry do that would be different than an on-level course?
That's a great question. Students are encouraged in honors chemistry to actually develop their own knowledge versus direct instruction in general chemistry. Application of knowledge is a key criterion for honors classes. Students are encouraged to try new things, take risks, learn that it's okay not to be right all the time. And especially in chemistry, we have many trials and we learn something from every mistake. And so we put an emphasis on being able to reevaluate what we've done to make sure that it's okay not to have the right answers all the time. It's okay not to be a perfectionist. But what's most important is that you learn from the mistakes that you made as you are developing your knowledge.
Is the curriculum different from honors compared to general chemistry?
That's another good question. The curriculum is set by the state with a set of standards that all chemistry, whether it's general or honors, so we have those sets of standards. But I like to say it's sort of general is maybe an inch deep and a mile wide, whereas honors is actually much deeper and still as wide. Also, the difference is more in the approach. There's a lot more freedom and less guidance on how to get to your answers, and a lot more I would like to say inquiry based. So the students are really encouraged to develop their knowledge and then apply it in the laboratory setting with more freedom. For example, if I might give honor students several chemicals to work together, of course none of them would be dangerous or harmful to them, to actually put them together to figure out how to make something, versus in honors, in on-level or general chemistry, I might give a student only 2 chemicals and their only choice is to put those together to make a product. So it's really a lot more freedom in how you get to your answers, and also a lot of group work where they collaborate together to find the information, or to develop their knowledge, actually ending with covering all the standards that are required.
Okay, parents, it's time to move on to your next class. It is time to move on to your next class.
Hi everyone, welcome to Honors World Literature. My name is Lindsay Riley, and I just want to express so much how thankful I am that you all come to open house. It just shows how invested you are in your kids' education, and that matters so much to me. If you have any questions about anything, please feel free to ask me at any time, kind of, after the conversation, that way you can ask individual needs or just kind of questions in general about the class itself. Honors World Literature is a standard classroom, which means it has both gifted and non-gifted students in it. And I want to make sure that you as gifted parents understand that the needs of your kids are being met. So one way that this is done, a study from McAllister and Saylor, they said that the most optimal learning environments are the ones where scholastic rigor is kind of like the standard. So I make it a point that I'm making and creating rigorous lessons that both stimulate the intellectual needs, but then also their desire to know more about their life. And that's what's so beautiful about Honors World, is it's this connection between cultures. So we do this through the types of texts that the kids are gonna read. So they're gonna read perspectives from the Nigerian culture, from the Chinese culture, that foundational knowledge from Greek theater, and then a ton of poetry, which allows them to challenge themselves. And it's important that the kids do, challenge their reading stamina and also their vocabulary. So I want to make sure that I'm providing an environment that does that. I also ensure that all of my lessons are relevant to kids of this time period, because it is so important that they feel like that they are connected to the material that they're learning, so then it's applicable as they go out into the real world, which is what's next for them. So I make sure that the lessons we have are, fun. Like, I do want them to have a nice time, so there's a variety of assessments that I use aside from reading and writing, even though reading and writing are prominent. I also know the importance of peer connection that exists within gifted students. So what I make sure that I do is that I don't just always have them doing independent work. As you can see, the desks right now are in pairs, which is nice, so they're doing a lot of pair activities. But then I also like doing group activities where the gifted kids are grouped together to kind of challenge their thinking, which allows them then to get kind of deeper and have that deeper analysis of reading it, just not stand at a surface level summarization. Most important, I do want you to know that I understand that kids are kids, and they have emotional and social needs that need to be fulfilled. So, a lot of kids sometimes they don't see the reason to do something. So what I like to do is kind of create this environment that is very open, so they're honest with me, but then also kind of honing that back in and saying, like, look, there is benefit in this. And I do make sure that they know that for everything that we're doing, there is benefit, and that they're gonna see the connection throughout the course of the semester. So, that's one thing that I really want you to know, is that I am here for your students. I am gonna be their cheerleader, I am gonna be their support system, and I am gonna be their educator. So I think it's very important that you know that about me kind of moving forward. So does anyone have any questions at this point that I can answer for you to help clarify some information? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
If I understand correctly, you have both gifted and non-gifted students in this class. How are you going to make sure that the needs of your gifted learners are met in a blended environment?
I understand that. I understand that there are gifted students in both gifted and non-gifted environments that are bored to tears because of, the way that the curriculum's set up. So one thing that I try to do is really create that engaging learning environment that allows them to really connect with the material that we're learning, and also making it relevant, because like I said, with relevancy comes interest. And when kids are interested, no matter what kind of level of, activities that we're doing, they invest themselves, and that's kind of, a big to-do, and that kind of goes for everybody. When they're engaged, then they're more connected, and once they realize that they're beyond this idea of simple and mundane, then they engage in it, which is great. So I'm going to make sure that I take on that responsibility to ensure that they're receiving their education that is appropriate, that is engaging and challenging, because then it will push them beyond their potential.
My child is a gifted arts student, but not truly gifted in English language arts. What are your assessments like for this class, especially since my daughter truly shows her knowledge visually and not verbally?
Yeah, so there are multiple forms of assessment. One of the strongest ones that I love, and I think it's beneficial for all students, is actually the performance type of assessment. So where they're showing me what they know. So I love to do project-based learning. I think that is so effective, and it allows them to kind of get their creativity by, conveying things through art or conveying them through, spoken word or whatever it might be. So we do have plenty of other different types of assessment to make sure that their gifted needs are being met, and they're allowing themselves to showcase what they know through their gifted ability. But like I said, I do make sure that I create this kind of formulaic system where kids get used to showing what they know through their writing. And that's something that we practice on a daily basis. So I scaffold that and I give them, outlines or other different types of graphic organizers to help kind of hone in their thinking. So when they do actually have to go to a standardized test like the SAT or the ACT, then they can show that through their reading and their writing abilities. But of course, I allow kids to have the creative outlet. I think it's so important.
Okay. I'm sure that other parents in the room can probably agree. My son is a perfectionist and he will continue to do things over and over until he feels that it is complete. How do you go about building his confidence and the confidence of other kids just to eliminate the need to be such a perfectionist in the room?
I completely understand, because when I was growing up, I was a perfectionist. I wanted to make sure every little detail, every little element was perfect and exactly, up to standard and everything. So I understand that exists, and that exists for so many gifted students, this idea of perfectionism. And I just want them to understand that nothing in the world is perfect. And, by the time that I had finally learned that, I still care a lot. Like, it still allows me to show that I care about what I'm doing and I'm motivated. But I don't get upset with myself if something is not 100% perfect. So I want to make sure that I instill that in them too, to realize that that's just something that no one can achieve that. Not one person on the planet is perfect.
Okay, parents, it's time to move on to your next class. It is time to move on to your next class.
Alright, so to recap, the gifted environment in my classroom is one that offers a safe and welcoming learning environment for your student. It provides a level of challenge and rigor in both the content and the assessments. And it encourages a learning environment from others with a student-centered lesson and structure. Okay, so before we go, are there any questions that I can answer about your student and my classroom?
Ms. Walsh, you stated that your room promotes engagement and motivation. Could you explain what areas you were talking about again?
Each of these levels have a different range of mastery. For example, a 92% to 100, an 80 to 91, and 68 to a 79. I put up the percentage of students that fit within these categories for each test. How are you comparing to your other classrooms? Are you within this distinguished learner category? Okay, can we get our class higher in a percentage? Okay, in the 50s, even the 74s as you see here in fourth period. The back wall is a wall about mathematics and careers. I want to bring your students' interests out within my classroom. The career of their choice right now has math in it. Do they know what math is involved? How hard do they have to focus in each of our classes in order to achieve their ultimate goal? So this motivator is an intrinsic one, pushed out to be more external, okay, more visual. Where are you trying to go? Can you do it? Do you still want to do this profession based on the level of math, the level of rigor, the content involved? On this right-hand wall, I gauge success. There are 3 thermometers, and for every A earned, the thermometer rises. And that's every A earned on a test. Okay? Once I have a class size, or about a half a class size of A's for each test, they earn a food day. Okay? I'm encouraging your student to push their expectations. They want to be a part of their classroom success. I do understand every student's level of success is different, but I'm pushing the expectation. I want them to try and achieve that A that they're wanting.
During your activities, what if my student is struggling with a level of rigor? How do you address that?
When a student is struggling based on the level of rigor, that doesn't mean they're struggling based on their level of intelligence. And I want to be able to tell your student the difference. If an assignment is too high of a level of rigor, I do provide structured assignments to reach that level. However, I want to build your student to be a mastery-oriented level of intelligence, not an intelligence based on helplessness. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, I want your student to feel smart because they worked through something and achieved a goal. I don't want them to feel smart because something came easy. Okay? Nothing in life comes easy. We're going to have to put forth that effort and that work to get there. There is research out there performed by a Columbia psychologist named Mueller in 1998. Okay? This research was presented in an article on how to raise your kid to be smart. This research was done on a handful of kids and presented a different level of problem. Okay? Some students were praised on, great, you are so smart, you got that so quickly. And some students were praised on their effort. Good job, good way to write that down. Look at your steps, good way to show your steps. Good effort. Okay? Then they were presented other levels of problems. As the problems got more and more challenging, this group who was praised on, you are smart, you're awesome, you got that so quickly, you're smart, they struggled because they decided to start underestimating or questioning their self-worth. Well, I must be dumb because this isn't coming so easily to me. Well, the group that was praised on effort welcomed the challenge. They worked through it, they tussled with it, and once they did it, they felt so much better about themselves because they stuck with it. That's the environment I want to bring when your student is struggling with that level of rigor. I want them to feel accomplished, that I stuck with it, I thought about it, and I got to a goal. I don't want them to feel, oh, I'm really smart. This should be easy, and now it's not easy, so I must be dumb. Okay? They'll be praised on their effort. How did you get it? Congratulations on sticking with it. I'm going to provide them with hints and help to get to that level so they can see the process that they need to continue to be successful in this classroom.
Miss Walsh, my student prefers to work alone, but it seems that you always have them in groups. Why can she not work by herself?
Interestingly enough, there is research out there that discusses that gifted students have this belief or this innate quality that they just want to work alone. Okay? This research comes from a woman named Lisa French and her colleagues at a Ropier Institute. And what they say, and I quote, is, gifted students might express a preference to work with others when learning is appropriate to their learning goals, and if the nature of interaction supports their needs as well as those of others. So what does this mean? Group work should not be a daunting task. Your child, your gifted student, should not be forced to be the leader of that group and carry the burden of the work. But that's what they relate group work to. In this classroom, we build a structure that everybody is responsible and should be working to an ultimate goal. So when a student feels supported in that culture, that the group work is a healthy collaboration and their efforts aren't gone unnoticed and their group is contributing, then group work is welcomed. And that's why your student works in groups. They work in pairs to learn how to work together and to achieve a goal. Okay? They do have an opportunity to work by themselves, but they need that collaboration. They need to know how to work with somebody to achieve an ultimate goal.
Parents, thank you so much for attending open house. We look forward to having a great year with you and your students. Have a great evening.